everyone, and welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting. And this is a special episode because it's not on Wednesday. And so I'm very, very excited to bring to you today my guest, Joe Frost. Many of us, sorry, I'm tongue twisted here, grew up watching and learning from Joe, who has guided families for decades as super nanny. And she's also lived her entire life navigating severe food allergies and anaphylaxis. Her perspective is real, grounded, and incredibly important. And I'm excited to talk to her today about her experience attending events and get her guidance as what we can do when we're hosting events in our own house or, events in California when you're going to the Grammys, right? Or I don't know if you're going to go to the Grammys, but so Joe, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate. Thank you.
So let's start with how we connected, which was last week or 2 weeks ago. Kerry Washington was on the Jimmy Kimmel show, and he asked her, he's like, "Oh, I heard you had food allergies." And she's like, "Yes, I do. And this is what I'm allergic to." And
too.
she is allergic to seafood. And Jimmy was like, "Does that include fish?" She's like, "Yes, that would be seafood." And freshwater fish, as well as mango, MSG, all nuts except for almonds and peanuts, and a couple of other ones.
Right.
So,
Okay. That's interesting.
yeah.
That's interesting because Kerry and I would have similarities in the fact that we are both allergic to seafood.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a crustacean.
Right.
Right. So lobster, shrimp, crab.
Yep.
But I can eat fish.
Okay.
So it sounds like you're saying she's allergic to fish as well.
Yeah, she's allergic to fish and crustaceans and mollusks.
Right, exactly. So mollusk I can eat. I love mussels.
They're so good.
And I love to eat swordfish, and a variety of different fishes, really. Right. So that can work for me. And then nuts. So nuts. All nuts is off the chart for me. All
really?
Nuts.
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
So we have similarities in some of our food allergies, our anaphylaxis to those certain foods. But we have, I felt heard.
Yeah.
I felt heard when Kerry Washington spoke about, eating in the bathroom. I have ate in the bathroom. I have, quickly grabbed something to eat that I've made from home to eat in the back of an Escalade car that's taken you to a red carpet event.
Right.
So that you can eat whilst you're there something that's going to last for hours, so that you have something in your tummy. I've, walked red carpets where, my own publicist might be carrying a protein shake that I can quickly, drink down before, having to sit down and join other people at a table where there hasn't been an accommodation. There hasn't been an inclusive menu or an accommodation of, if you have allergies, please point that out, please mention that, so I felt very heard in the fact that was mentioned, because I think what she's really talking about is what millions of us experience every day,
right?
And in no matter what part of America you live in, at some point you will have repetitively come across either a host or an event or a restaurant or a place or a person or a brand or an airline where there is not any exclusivity to the fact that there are millions of us who live with life-threatening allergies.
Yeah.
Life-threatening. And so, I made that comment because I get it. Ditto.
So ditto, exactly. So do you, like, when you RSVP for those events, I'm assuming you have to RSVP, they're not asking that question?
No,
No?
no, we're giving it, and I say we are,
Mhm.
as in my representation, but
Mhm.
it's not a consideration, and it is one where you have to weigh up whether you attend based on how long it's going to go on for. Can you get an idea of what's going to be served?
Mhm.
What does that look like? How big are the tables? How many of you at the table? Because certain foods are just, that they're airborne.
Right.
If you're, I can't sit at a table if Thai food is being served like that. That's not something that works for me, because the smell of the nuts, the smell of the peanut, the smell of the cashew, the smell of
Mhm.
will trigger that for me. So
Wow.
again, there needs work, but I think this is a country that does need a lot of work with
Mhm.
respects to inclusivity.
Yeah.
You
The
know,
it reminds me of the Ocean's 8 movie, with Sandra Bullock and all of them, and Kate Blanchett
yeah,
was the hired, like, food allergy specialist, right? And that's this huge gala, you know was it at the Met? Um,
it was, yeah.
yeah.
Was it the
um,
Met?
I have to go back and look, but it was
Yeah,
well, I don't know if the Met, because it was jewelry. Yes, it was a jewelry. I think it was a jewelry thing, but
yeah.
that should be what is done, because, and actually I remember asking a couple of years ago when uh Phoenix, or not two of the actors that were up for the Golden Globes or the Oscars were vegan, and I wanted to know, like, for the dinner, are you serving, or will you have something for them to eat? And somebody reached out to me or responded to me and said, "Do not even question that we wouldn't do that." But with this experience that you and Kerry have explained, it's like it's not necessarily done.
I think that was a rather hostile response.
Yeah.
Whereas, you should have been received with a warm welcome of, we absolutely take pride as a company in
Mhm.
making sure everybody is relaxed and confident and comfortable in those settings that they will be in. And I
Mhm.
think it makes all the difference to people like us in our community, especially, and we're talking about something specific which is still important, but not everyone's going to the Met Gala, not everyone's going to a red carpet event, not everybody's walking that. But the reality is that no matter where we are,
Mhm.
the consideration of that is important. We could say the same for those with disabilities, invisible and physical disabilities,
Right.
to have access, right, to be able to be in a place where that's considered, so that, where food is prepped and you're
Mhm.
considering cross contamination. Again, we're your most loyal customers. So, it just really resonates for the fact that we do still have a long way to go with
Right.
respects to having the mindset of understanding, especially as we are seeing this increase.
Right.
That one needs to be mindful of that. But again, it's high ratio of people, that would require training staff,
Mhm.
that would require looking at menus that actually then could accommodate perhaps a menu where they wouldn't have to worry about that,
Right.
looking at those top allergens. And so, yeah, you have to look at the risk factor. There are many things that I get invited to, and some of them are just too high risk. So I don't go.
Wow. And those could be opportunities for you that you're missing out of, in your career, or with, networking with other people in your field of work.
Absolutely, absolutely, and there are many of those opportunities, because the risk is just too high for me, and the price to pay is life, and
Right.
I can't juggle with that. That's like being in a place with a loaded gun for me. I can't risk that. For something that I can easily say no to and
Right.
protect myself.
Well,
But
and
yeah, you
yeah.
know.
So, and you've openly spoke about, and I was reading a lot about you and how you handle this, and you scan every room as you enter. So what does that safety checklist look like for you when you're going? Well, actually, what if you're going into one of the houses that you're working with one of the families, or if you're going on set? Does that vary in those different scenarios?
Well, I set the standard of what that is to protect myself. So
Okay.
if we think about helping families, so I'm not anaphylaxis to dogs, but
Okay.
I'm highly allergic to animals. So if they lick me, their saliva will create hives and etiquera.
Oh, wow.
So and breathing problems with asthma. So all animals were either they went to the neighbors or to a family member.
Uh huh.
The children and the parents were explained to why, and they were all like, "Oh my god, I didn't realize."
Mm-hmm.
We would make sure that as a company to protect me, that places were cleaned, so
Mm-hmm.
there's not residue of like lots of dander around.
Right.
So there's like minimum risk of things like that. And then foods. So there's a lot of hugging and kissing that goes on when I'm helping families and children. And
Mm-hmm.
we're filming for over 200 hours when we were filming the Super Nanny show or Nanny on Tour, or really any one of my formats helping families.
Mm-hmm.
And so foods were a concern. Americans do love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Yes, we do.
A lot of trail mix and nuts and things like that. So they would be given the download of what my medical condition was and what that entailed, and then crew would go in and make sure that that was all taken away and removed, and they would obviously
Mm-hmm.
be given that when we came back. Animals, if they needed to be boarded, they would be paid for so that the animals could be boarded for the
Mm-hmm.
days that I was there. So really what's happening is that, crew are going in knowing what I specifically need
Mm-hmm.
to protect me, to do my job with diligence with a family so that they successfully have the outcome that
Mm-hmm.
they need. Unfortunately, I have had an anaphylactic. I did go into anaphylactic shock whilst filming once.
Wow.
And that wasn't to do with the family. It actually was a mistake on one of the crew's behalf, a situation that was overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't see anything physically, but trusted a situation. And of course, that's always an awful situation because, obviously you're in the hospital with anaphylaxis, and the crew member feels absolutely awful because
Right.
it's been an oversight. But lucky enough, I'm here to tell the story of that. But it's hypervigilance
Mm-hmm.
in order to be able to protect, and you make sure that your crew absolutely know how to administer EpiPens.
Mm-hmm.
And the importance of that. They absolutely know what those signs and symptoms are. They know where my EpiPens are at all times. And so, I'm carrying that with me always anyway.
Right.
Right. So it's just, it's information. It's not just, but it's the information that's necessary for those, should you need it.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
and that has, like, I think that story that you just shared is kind of really helped you fundamentally change and educate the rest of the crews on how it has to be to make sure that it's safe for you. And it I think it's education across the board, right? Because a lot of people don't realize that it is life threatening, or
Well, it's
something.
been because it's been minimized.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because it's minimized. People are laughing about it, joking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Media will be irresponsible about it. It'll be written, anaphylaxis will be written into movies or series
Mm-hmm.
where the signs or the symptoms are incorrect, or the administration of epinephrine is incorrect, or it's plotted as the twist to be killing people.
Oh,
And
that just happened this week.
it did. Tell me about that.
It was in the show. all her fault. Yeah. So,
Oh, I
yeah,
watched that. That was a really good. That was a really good
it
series.
was. Yeah.
Right.
But in the end, that's
That's
how
right.
he died.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So again,
Well, and
it's it's there. I mean,
mhm.
I think I remember watching. Was it Hitch?
Yes. Yep.
And like just you're having anaphylactic shock, and like the first thing they offer is a load of Benadryl,
Mhm.
and you're like, where's the EpiPens? Where's the epinephrine? Where's the
Right.
emergency plan? Where's the action plan? And then again, Peter Rabbit, and then another, all the like, just the responsibility. I think it's
Right.
important that if you're going to put it in there,
Right.
then just make sure you get it right.
Right.
But again, there's loads of opportunities where it by default minimizes the
Right.
reality of it being known as a serious medical condition, in the same way that we call everything an allergy.
Right.
I
Mhm.
have allergies to mold, I have allergies to animals.
Right.
I'll sneeze in the seasonal calendar year, but anaphylaxis is life threatening for me,
Mhm.
and that's no joke.
Right.
That's no joke. And it's a real risk. And as I've mentioned, that elimination, to make sure that you can protect yourself and be safe, you've got to take the threat out the room.
Right.
You've got to
Yeah.
take the threat out the room as much as you can. So, you asked me, what does it look like for me?
Mhm.
It looks like advocating for myself, because there's not an option to
Right.
not do that, to
Mhm.
advocate for myself, which means I'm smelling when I walk into a room, and I'm looking and scanning when I walk into a room, and I'm looking at surfaces, and
Yep.
if there's any contact of anything, and what are people, what do people have in their hands, what do they
Right.
just get out their bag on the
Mhm.
airplane,
Right.
how is somebody's attitude to what I've just said, are they listening and taking that on board, and are they going to provide safety for me, and health and safety standards that are, with inclusion, so that
Right.
everybody is safe and everybody, has the same. That doesn't change.
No.
And it's, I think when you're in the community, you get it, you understand it, because it's draining,
Right.
it's exhausting. It
It
takes an awful amount of energy to be hyper vigilant all the time, when you're out,
mhm.
because your home is your safe space. And so that requires an element of understanding how you take care of your mental health and your
Mhm.
emotional health, living with such a medical condition, because it can take its toll, and it's keeping that anxiety at a healthy place
Mhm.
that doesn't take you to paranoia,
Right.
I guess, is maybe the
Mhm.
right word I'm looking for. You want to be hyper vigilant, but you don't want to be, completely paranoid about absolutely everything. But you do learn, I believe, over time, if you are recognizing how to take care of your mental health, living with anaphylaxis, over time, you start to fine tune a balance with that.
Okay. And I think that's important because I've had people like, well, similar to you, just stay home and don't go to that event. But we can't stay at home all the 100% of the time. We have to be able to get out. We have to be with our families. We have to be in communities. We have to go to work. And, if we're going to put how many, one in every 10 people has a food allergy, you want us all to stay at home? I don't think that's realistic, you know?
Well, it's two in every classroom now.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Two children in every classroom, and again, it's different in different countries.
Right.
Here we need nurses that can literally be able to administer epinephrine. We need medical kits in every public event or schools or libraries, anything to do with children and family. We should have medical kits. As we see heart defibrillators, we should have epinephrine on walls, like the medical kit, right?
Right. I agree.
And those in places so that, that can be easily accessible. But we also need to understand the importance of staff being trained in restaurants or airport flight crew, or for me, what's fundamentally very important as well is the training that's necessary in our nurseries and our daycare centers, that we have trained staff and labeling on menus and prep areas to minimize our concerns, right? So that things are not vague, they're not vague.
Well, and you've got, I mean, I know a restaurant might not have a huge kitchen, but when you're thinking about events and event spaces, I mean, those are larger spaces. You can find a spot somewhere in a tent or somewhere in a convention center to make that food in a safe environment so that you can feed people. But it takes systems and processes, and it's not. I was reading something today. It's like, if it's just in one person's head, that's not a system. That's just somebody like, hey, I hope Joe's going to be okay, right? It's not letting everybody else know.
Yeah, I mean, look, law and policy is important. We need that, right? If we can establish policies that change laws to protect everyone, but what are we talking about?
Right.
We're talking about people investing in people. We are talking about empathy, right? The more we can educate, the more we empathize to others, so that we can keep all of us safe, so that we can all have a beautiful experience wherever we are together. We are talking about human beings investing in other human beings. That's, humanity, right? Kindness, kindness, consideration, right? We're talking about humanity over greed and profit.
Yep.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. Now, well, so we were talking about laws like the Addy Act. I think are you familiar with the Addy Act that just got passed in California?
Tell me more about. I haven't been filled in about what exactly has happened now.
So it was signed into law in October. So it is restaurants that have food facilities, I should say, that have more than 20 locations nationwide.
All right. Yes.
Must now label for the top 9 allergens.
Yeah. Well, let's just talk 2 words. It's become the standard, and now we have accountability. Period.
Right. Yep. And that unfortunately is only in California. And hopefully those companies that are doing that will now implement it in all their other venues or their locations, even because they have to do it in California.
Correct.
We can hope, right?
Well, we have to hope, and we have to keep pushing, and we have to keep making sure, that we're fighting for that.
Right. Yeah.
So that we're fighting for that, so that our children, our families are safe, and that standard, sets a good precedent for others to be able to follow, and for that to now, not just be California but other states.
Right.
And the accountability of that, the importance of the accountability of that,
Right. Yeah. And I know
that is incredibly important.
Say that again.
Which is incredibly important.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I know that Thomas just got in, I think in New York now, all daycares now have to have epinephrine on site, and in the state of New York. Yeah.
And a major victory.
Yes. Yeah.
A major victory to Dina and Thomas, a major victory to the foundation in being able to push that through now in New York. And again, we want that everywhere else.
Exactly.
Our children should be safe in a space where they thrive to learn and have fun and play and it be joyful, and for staff to be properly trained in understanding anaphylaxis and allergies, and for And for this, it requires leadership with empathy and compassion and education to understand the severity of that.
Yeah.
Every child should be able to be dropped off at daycare and have a beautiful day without any parent ever worrying whether they're going to see their child again because they have anaphylaxis to whatever
Right.
that is.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
and here again we see such strength and leadership from this foundation, you know, in the face of such tragedy that's happened. And it shouldn't take that. It shouldn't take that.
No.
You know, it just shouldn't take children's lives. We see this, you know, in London again with Natasha's foundation, you know, and the work that they're doing and the importance of being able to have, you know, a person that will be appointed, right, across the UK to these circumstances, but at the price of us losing our children, you know, and adults.
Yeah.
You know, it should not be. It just should not be. The rule should be that those that are the proprietors, you know, are training, even with, you know, you hear all the excuses. Why it's a high turnaround with staff, and then, you know, customer service and training management skills, period.
Yeah.
That should be on the board, period. Full stop.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because the food codes are changing in some of the states to require labeling. But one person told me that, you know, salmonella and, you know, food safety in that respect has a higher priority than a food allergy. And so they're not going to get dinged if they're not labeling the food properly. And that's not California, that's another state. But I'm like, why would somebody's death not warrant, you know, potential death not warrant, but they're looking at it as one person versus a couple hundred people who could get sick from food poisoning, right? But I think death is a lot. It's I
Death
don't
is
know.
death.
Death is death,
Death is
right?
death.
Yeah,
You can't come back from that.
right. Yeah,
You know, death is death. And again, what are we talking about? You know, we're talking about an attitude. We're talking about a lack of education. We're talking about a lack of empathy. We're talking about, you know, true leadership in understanding what do we do to keep our children and adults safe when they have a life-threatening medical condition.
right.
Yeah, I've had, you know, I've been into fancy restaurants, and I've had, you know, I've been told by staff, you know, no, absolutely, there's nothing in there. Like, you have to, you know, you're reading everything. You're hypervigilant. Like, did the tone of their voice, did it line up with what they said? Did their body language match that? Like, I need to speak to the chef, please, if that's okay. And, you know, when you get, I find that it predominantly happens in either the very young or the very old. But when you get either the old or the very young as staff, they're too embarrassed to say they don't know what it is. So, you know, I'll use the word anaphylaxis. Like, I think there should be a distinguished difference between anaphylaxis and just allergy, because allergies, people automatically think, oh, you're saying there's an allergy. But are you just being pretentious? And you're saying that you have a gluten allergy, you have celiac, but, you know, are you just having a fad? Is it just a fad that you don't want to eat anything with gluten in it? And you're like, no, this will kill me. Like, this is severe,
right?
You know, and this is the stakes. This is the stakes of where we're at, which is no different to if you're in a container 39,000 feet up in the air.
Right.
You would hope that your servers and your flight crew want to minimize death, period.
Right.
Death. Like, you know, your epinephrine pen is giving you an allocated amount of time.
Right.
You know, you may survive. You may not. Right. But the idea is that as soon as you start to, you know, feel those signs and symptoms, and you've administered that, you have an allocated amount of time. You may be then putting the second EpiPen in, but, you know, 911, get to the hospital straight away, and you just pray that you're going to live. you're not even praying at that moment. You're like alive, like you're holding on to dear life. You're holding on to dear life in that moment, trying to gaze and catch on. I mean, I remember my last anaphylaxis shock, and I just remember looking into the doctor's eyes thinking, can I hold on to what this guy is telling me right now? Can I hold on to it? Like, is this okay? Is this going to be all right? And again, that shouldn't be a compromise, Tracy.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be a compromise.
So when you've administered your EpiPens and then you're at the hospital, what is that next course of action? I mean, are they giving you more epinephrine at that point, or what are they doing?
I don't know what they're doing.
Okay.
Because by the time I've had 1 or 2 injections of epinephrine, everything then goes into a very sharp, focused sort of vision, tunnel vision for me.
Right.
And I'm trying to breathe, because it's really funny because I sat here before we got into this interview, and I thought, I don't really write down like each step of what it is, but if I could explain it, my ears start to itch, and then my face gets hot, and then my saliva increases, and then my heart rate increases, and then my face starts to swell, and then my eyes get swollen and I can't see, and my face starts to come right up and it goes out and swollen, and then my lips, and I can't talk, and everything feels really tight and puffy, and there's no room to talk because my throat is closing up. I feel like I'm trying to get air out of a really tiny, narrow straw. All I can focus about is staying alive, and please God, please stay alive. Just keep breathing, one next breath after the next. I'm dizzy, I'm gasping for breath, I'm wheezing. The feeling of dread comes over. There's panic that's high. My body is itching. My body is hot. My skin is clammy, cold, and the chest pains. At that point, I'm thinking to myself, is this cardiac arrest? Is this cardiac pain? And that's happening all in microseconds of just all together at the same thing. And just praying that I can come through that, come through that moment, and then there's a moment where things start to become easier, very slowly, and easier and easier. And then I feel like a come down from that. And then my body has been holding, it's just been holding. And I can feel like almost an internal bruising of where your lungs have been overworked, right? Because my body has felt attacked, right? I mean, that's what it is, right? My body feels like it's attacked. And then the next several days after that event is one of recovery, physically, one of recovery.
And mentally.
It's physically, and then it's mentally, and it's emotional too. It's the emotional impact of that as well. So again, it's I think it's hard for anybody who hasn't lived through one of these to really understand the severity of it. But you shouldn't have to. You should never have to, in order to empathize what one human being goes through, let alone over 35 million, and the impact of that worldwide, to recognize the importance of what we do to change that through policy and law and trained staff to protect every individual. whether that's in a daycare, whether that's in a restaurant, whether that's in an event, whether that's labeling on menus, prepping areas, training staff. That's what it will take.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important to continue to educate. It's important when you have the opportunity. And again, it is people investing in people, and
Mm-hmm.
changing that when they are at the top of the chain of what they can do. I've had I travel a lot for work. And I've had flight crew that have been absolutely on board with anything they can do to accommodate. We want you safe. We want you safe on this flight. We want you to, we want you to feel good, even passengers. But then I've had passengers that just minimize, you're getting gaslit. They're literally minimizing, like, oh, it can't be that bad, or the sort of the kind of myths, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, a small amount won't hurt you,
Right.
or I'll be told, like, oh, just scrape that off and it'll be fine. Like, scrape that off. You're like, you can't
Right.
scrape that off the food and it'll be fine.
Right.
Like, that's not going to work, or for some, oh, but you'll outgrow it, it'll be fine, and some people do. I
Mm-hmm.
never outgrew any of mine.
So you've had
And
them for your whole life?
my whole life, over 50 years. So
Wow.
yeah, and again, those myths, not everyone's outgrowing,
Right.
their allergies.
Mm-hmm.
And the labeling, the labeling is, I think, is incredibly important. And I think it's one, again, that's just about legalities,
Mm-hmm.
because it's wrong. I think it's morally wrong. It's ethically, it's wrong. Like, for those that are just finding out about themselves or their kids and are doing everything they can do to protect them, the labeling is so incredibly important, because I've seen on apple juice may contain nuts. On apple juice.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
seen it on apple juice. And there are foods that I've been able to eat that says may contain nuts, and I know it doesn't. And I've eaten it because I know it doesn't. I've been around long enough. I know it hasn't. But for somebody who is, in doubt, just don't.
Right. Yeah.
Just don't. But again, I think it's about educating yourself as much as you can, alleviating and making sure that you're in support groups, that you're, maybe attached to different charities and foundations that provide that type of support, so
Right.
that you can talk to others and you can learn. You learn
Mm-hmm.
so much from others as well.
Right.
And the things that they do, to help and to prevent. But we do need a safer world. We do need a safer
We
world.
do. Yeah. So what, from a meeting planner's perspective, from any kind of event that you're going to, what would you like to see? Or, when, like, hey, I'm interested in coming to this event, what would you want to see on maybe their website, on the registration form, in any kind of capacity? I'm sure, like the Oscars, you're not going online and registering through Eventbrite, to click off a box, but what could, or organizers, in your opinion, help you to feel more comfortable?
It would be more than wonderful to, first and foremost, have them establish themselves as event planners or institutions or wherever that is, that they accommodate those with allergies.
Mm-hmm.
And then making sure that all of their staff is trained and well versed in language. Know what anaphylaxis is.
Right.
Be the first to ask. Let's look at areas, certain areas, so that we haven't got cross contamination. Prep certain areas maybe where people could eat that would be safer for them as well.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the labeling, the labeling of what's inside the foods would really help as well.
Right. Yeah. And not saying, hey, this is dairy free, this is gluten free, we need to know what's in it, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Not what we would like. Some people would like to know that it is dairy free and gluten free, but we also need to know what's in it, because that hidden ingredient is what could potentially kill you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's not just for, that's food and beverage.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because beverage has, certain alcoholic beverages as well for adults, have cashews and almonds and things like that.
Right.
So different foods. But everything we're talking about is consideration, inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're really talking about at the end of the day with everything.
Yeah.
So that we have more clarity.
Right.
So that we have more clarity, because we're able to read the labels, we're able to see what the ingredients are, even though we're carrying our wipes and our EpiPens, and maybe a few histamine tablets in there as well, and everything else for our precaution, and our and our little meals, our little homemade snacks. I mean, I don't eat on a plane.
Yeah, and Leanne Mandelbaum will tell you not to eat on a plane if you have food allergies, because they don't, and I can attest to asking flight attendants. Yeah, they don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, Leah's fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, that woman is that's salute her passion, her relentlessness on what she does.
Yes, 100% agree.
To make flying safer for everyone. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, Joe, I have a couple of rapid fire questions that I want to ask. Okay. What's one food you wish you could safely eat that you haven't been able to?
Oh, it's got to be the ones that you can't, right? So, my family are English and Mediterranean.
Okay.
So, it would be prawns, it would be gambas, the Spanish paella, and the whole Mediterranean Spanish foods, that have the seafood. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What you kind of just listed off what was in your purse, but what's in your purse besides your EpiPens?
I have my EpiPens, wipe down wipes for traveling, pen, emergency plan. I have cards. So, like, if I go to different countries, I'll have cards as well that will say what my allergies are. And what else? And then I've got other, I have asthma, so I have my asthma stuff in there as well.
Okay.
Pen, paper, emergency plan. So pertaining to my anaphylaxis.
Right. Yeah. Well, and Kerry did a thing too, is about, having the cards that she travels and she gets them translated to whatever country the language of the country she's going to. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important. Even if you're talking the language, it's really important just to have it written as well. So I have like a stack. I have like a little stack of, they look like playing cards, but it all depends on where I am. Like, we prep, and my husband's really good at making sure. He's like, I want to make sure that we're going to be going here. This is somewhere new. We're going to be in Abu Dhabi or in Dubai. And we want to make sure, we flew to Riyadh, and, everything's laced with cherry and almonds. And, so it was important just to make sure that those cards were in place, and, people could understand as well. So, everything, a lot of it's preparation.
Right.
A lot of it's preparation so that you are able to really lessen your anxiety wherever you go, because it's not going to go, it doesn't go away. You learn to manage it better, but there's no two ways about it. At some point you need to be able to go, okay, well, I'm good now. We're able to sit down here and actually enjoy this moment here, so for anaphylaxis, I would say they're the main sort of things in my bag around that.
And then talking about travel, is there a place that you have traveled where you felt surprisingly safe eating?
No, I think I'm diligent everywhere, if I'm really honest, and I'm a well-traveled lady. So there's not a moment where I reach somewhere and go, oh my God, this is really surprising. There are definitely countries that I think in Europe are easier, so again, it's about education, because everyone gets the same story from me. My voice is my protection. And so I'm able to voice unapologetically. I don't see myself as a burden. A lot of people are made to feel that they're a burden, that they're inconvenienced, that they're a nuisance. And I'm very unapologetic about that, but because I was raised that way. I was raised that way by family, that understood the importance that at some point they would protect me, and at some point I would have to champion to protect myself, you know. And I was raised that way, with that education, with that awareness. My friends are protective, my brother, you know, my big champion. So again, I don't think there's any particular country that sort of has ever that has ever hit me as in, oh, this is so easy. But there are countries where maybe people are more well versed, more aware,
Mm-hmm.
and restaurants, you know, or places where you ask and they're like, oh yes, no, it's over here, or look in the menu here and it's
Mm-hmm.
all lined out here, and oh no, our facility is it's fine, and oh yes, well, and they just, you're like, oh, that was great. I didn't have to fight to try and, you know, keep myself safe. Like it was that the
Wow.
experience was easy with the other human being or where you were. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that has happened along the way in my travels, but not a particular country that I could overall say, oh, it's go there. It's just really easy. Everything's really fine, you know. And I don't think, you know, I'll ever find that. But I know, obviously, you know, your own home is your safety, and your loved ones, you know, friends and loved ones who care
Mm-hmm.
about you,
Yeah.
because you know they're the first to make sure that you're okay, or those that are aware.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you go to a dinner party and they'll call through and they'll say, you know, hey, I just wanted to make sure, are there any allergies, or, and you just, oh, it's beautiful.
It is
Yeah.
beautiful because they're paying attention and they want to do the best. They want you to come in and feel that you are wanted in this space. Yeah.
And you know, we don't have to worry about us in our community because we get it.
Mm-hmm.
What we want is others to champion for us, you know,
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and to understand how important that is for us, as we would for anybody else who's living with an invisible medical condition,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or a disability in some way or another.
Right.
I don't, you know, I don't see my medical condition as a disability. I don't see it as a hindrance. It doesn't define who I am, that's for sure. You know,
It's just part of who you are.
but it is part of who I am, and I live alongside it. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, this is the body that's on the journey with me. You know,
Yeah, exactly. All right. One final question. Finish this sentence for me. Every meal should.
every meal should be an enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
Where everybody has clarity about what they're eating.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah, because it is. We want to know what's in our food across the board. Yeah.
And you know, I help families professionally, and meal times are such a, you know, meal. There's so much to be gained from coming around a table and
Mm-hmm.
eating great, wonderful foods and having beautiful conversations and the social aspect of that. And you know, for children, they're learning as well those
Mm-hmm.
life skills. You know, and so you know, just the art of that as family and being able to do that safely is a beautiful experience. And you hope that you are walking into sort of mini living rooms in different events or restaurants, and you can create that, whether you're meeting
Yeah.
someone for the first time or whether you're with your family
Yeah.
or at a wedding, you know, wherever you are.
Yeah. So there's a couple of comments over here I want to post really quickly. So Jeremiah, let's see, and I have to learn how to fix my little thing here, but I love Joe Frost. So Jeremiah, we all do.
Oh, thank you, Jeremiah.
And then Miss Jill has said, so happy to catch this live, longtime fan of Joe's. Another, and then she's got a couple
Thank
other.
you. Thank you, Jill.
It's also great to see you two women to be such wonderful advocates, role models. And then she just reiterated what you just said, which was every meal should be an enjoyable experience. Yeah. So
Yeah.
thank you for tuning in. Yeah.
Thank you, Tracy.
You're welcome, Joe. I'm so glad that you can join us. And how can everybody follow you? Where do they find you?
JoeFrost.com, Joe Frost on Instagram, YouTube, Joe Frost, everything Joe Frost.
Joe Frost. Okay. Awesome.
Jofrost.
Okay, fantastic. Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in today and participating. Jill and Jeremiah, appreciate that. And Joe, thank you so much for your advocacy. It's wonderful, and I know it's built from. Oh, Jeremiah just said, "Bring back the Super Nanny show."
Well, families do want me back out there helping, whether it's the Super Nanny show or another Joe Frost show. They definitely do want me out there helping. So hopefully I can facilitate that soon.
Well, we would love to see it, and thank you for what you do to help families across the board, and
Thank
then
you.
advocating for food allergy safety as well. So, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for joining us,
I
everybody.
appreciate.
You're welcome. All right, I want to everybody, thank you for tuning in. I will have another live episode on Wednesday. We're going back and talking about feeding our communities with excess food from our events. And I'm very excited about talking about that. All right, Jeremiah popped in one more thing here. Have a great evening. We need Super Nanny season 9 and Super Nanny season 10. He's a
Jeremiah
huge
is
fan.
he's an avid fan. That's
He
right.
is. He is. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much, and I'll see you later. Stay safe and eat well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And this is going to